how do you hold on to hope? That's just a real core question. How do we hold on to hope? There are so many challenges that are set before us, and we've, in individual conversations all day long, we've named these challenges. And so how do we keep hoping? How do we avoid falling into despair, or even more horrifically, the consideration of suicide, as you described earlier? So, John and I don't claim to have any magic answers here. We got to make it clear to you. We know how hard this is. We're there. But we do believe that within community we can hold each other up, that we can be there for one another, and that we can change our communities in such a way that we can hold on to hope. And so we want our communities to stop fearing and stigmatizing dementia, and we want our community institutions to extend hospitality and inclusion. So that's kind of a bottom line, that we want to show that people are welcome, regardless of where they are in the dementia journey. We'll show you some very nice examples of that in a little while. So, communities flourish, and we're going to work through these. They're on your outlines, and so I fleshed it out a little bit on this slide to talk about these aspects of flourishing. But before I work through these 5 categories, I want to tell you where this idea came from. This idea came from a social psychologist who worked originally at UW-Madison and now has gotten his own tenure-track position. And he worked with a very well-known psychologist named Carol Riff, R-Y-F-F, who studies psychological well-being. And what this psychologist who's come up with this idea about flourishing, his name is Corey Keyes, K-E-Y-E-S, and that will be on your printout of the slides. What he's tried to say is, in the 21st century, we need a whole new way of thinking about mental health and about social health. That as psychologists, we spent much of the 20th century very much absorbed in thinking about depression and anxiety and other, what used to be called neuroses, if you remember, but we got rid of that word, but then the severe mental health problems like bipolar and schizophrenia, etc. So we put a lot of resources into trying to study that. But we weren't as good at coming up with what constituted psychological well-being. What constitutes, a good life psychologically. And that all started to change around the turn of the 21st century, when a whole new area of psychology opened up called, excuse me, positive psychology. You talked to somebody went to a positive aging conference? You did, okay. So, I keep getting this little tickle in my throat. So Corey Keyes has been a part of this positive psychology idea, but he's moved it out more broadly to think about how do we think about social health as well. He talks about, instead of talking about people being mentally ill or mentally healthy, which kind of still puts it within the biomedical domain, he talks about people who are flourishing and people who are languishing. People who are flourishing and people who are languishing. And then he has taken these categories in which he described persons in terms of psychological well-being, flourishing or languishing, and applied them to social groups. So you can think of some social groups that are languishing. We were talking about one last night. Okay? It's just not growing. it seems to have lost vitality. Sometimes in a social group that's languishing, there's even some pathology around the edges, right? You know, things are not good. So let's not focus on that. Let's focus on flourishing and talk about these 5 hallmarks of a flourishing community. One is that communities flourish when people feel like they belong there. They feel like they're integrated. Think about a congregation that's flourishing. It's a congregation where people feel welcome. Okay? They feel like they belong. They feel like that regardless of their age, their income, even their mental health status, it's okay. They're welcome here. And communities flourish when, by and large, people can trust other people, believe other people are kind, accept one another's foibles. We're not perfect. You know how many social groups have gotten ripped apart because we expected our leader to be perfect. We expected our minister to be perfect, right? Okay? So there's a social acceptance. There's an acceptance that, you know, I have weaknesses and you have weaknesses, but we're all working towards this same goal that we agree is a good goal. Okay? Our community can flourish. Communities flourish when people feel they've got something valuable to contribute, and that's what we were talking about before. Do the older members of congregations still believe they have something to contribute besides writing a check? Do people who have dementia believe they have something to contribute? Is there something they can contribute? If you've got a memory care unit somewhere here, right? Do the folks who live here at Walnut Village, yes, do they feel like they can contribute?
Yes.
Right? Social contribution, so important. Yay. Okay. When they're hopeful about the future of their communities. That's a really important one for congregations. Instead of this gloom and doom of, you know, oh, ours is a dying congregation, you know, because it's all gray heads out there, right? How can we be hopeful about the future of this community? Can we be hopeful about the future? And are people open to understanding and learning more about what's happening in their communities? Or are we going to hide our head in the sand? Okay? So, are people open to learning how many folks in their community might have the diagnosis of dementia, whether official or not? You know, are they open to facing up to this? Are they open to learning more about this condition? Or do they want to, you know, create an illusion that it's not a problem here? I mean, how many of you have ever sat on church finance boards, right, where people did not want to know what was going on? They really didn't want to see that. Okay, so flourishing, and here's just another way of seeing it, tying these all together. Flourishing communities, and I really think this is helpful. And those of you who are in the mental health field, I suggest that you read some of Corey Keith's papers on psychological flourishing as well as social flourishing, and I think that you'll begin to see how intriguing it is to look at the overlay of this psychological and social flourishing. We need to create dementia-friendly communities, and that's what we're here to tell you about today. Well, what on earth does that mean? Well, once again, we went to England to find out. And this is a publication free on the web, a PDF you can get, Developing Dementia-Friendly Communities. It is chock full of detail. The British just have done a great job of engaging in social citizenship. They have gone to people with dementia and asked them, what does your community need to make it dementia-friendly? And this is what they've learned. It's a place where it's possible for the greatest number of people with dementia to live a good life. where they are enabled to live as independently as possible and to continue to be part of their community. At some points, they may not be able to live independently, but still they can be a part of the community. No moats. And they are met with understanding and given support when necessary. When necessary, they are given support in a way that does not injure their pride. And then the people who they interviewed said, well, what is a dementia-friendly community? They can find their way around. They can be safe. So good wayfinding. You know older people are talking about how much time do I have to cross this street? Have you made changes in California on your crossing lights and all?
Some places.
Some places, yeah.
Yeah, other places it's like 2 seconds. They cross. Okay, so that they can be safe, that they can go places. This is like we were talking about the Italian village, where they're used to, where they're known. They feel welcomed in these places. Okay, and they can maintain their social networks so they feel like they continue to belong. As we say, this isn't rocket science. We could have all come up with these things, okay? We just need to put it into practice. So I'm going to work through this fairly quickly and then hand things over to John, who's going to tell you about some of the stuff that we're doing in Wisconsin. But this also comes out of that publication from England. And they talk about if you're going to create a community that is dementia-friendly, you need to address these 5 interrelated domains. And the person is in the middle, okay? So it's always the person. So we ask people, what do you want? What would make your community better? We've actually been doing that in Appleton. We've done a survey of over 300 people in Appleton to ask that question. But the place, the people, the resources, and networks. And let me just run through this pretty quickly and you'll get this. So the person. So our services are the things that we're providing for these people, helping them keep a sense of self-determination, autonomy, independence. We know that that's not the be-all and end-all, but it is important. Right? Are the services helping them hang on to that? It's not everything, but it's important. And are they encouraged to participate in groups? In the poker club, in church, in the service club? Are they still welcome at Rotary meetings? This one is very important to us, and John will tell you a little bit more about it in a few minutes. Employment policies. If we're going to start encouraging people to get diagnosed earlier, people are still going to be working. And what are we going to do about that? And it may be the care partner who is still working and who may need to take time away. Now, we've got the Family and Medical Leave Act, okay? And we have employers that have policies in terms of child care, but we need more in terms of elder care, right? That's a policy issue that I think we need to work on. And we need to educate employers, HR people, What are you going to do when your accountant no longer can do the work of the accountant? Is there no job in this organization this person can do? May there be something this person could do? Maybe not. Maybe we find another job for this person at a different organization, etc. John will speak to that in a minute. But anyway, so we need to pay attention to the person. We need to pay attention to the place. Again, social citizenship. Ask people, do you need longer time on the crosswalks? What's going to help you find your way around? Are the signs, can you read them? Encouraging businesses to be dementia friendly, and there's the signage again. Did you ever try to find your way through a hospital with really bad signage? It's just awful. Right? People, here we are doing awareness training and awareness raising, consciousness raising, if some of you remember that. And then you're doing this with all kinds of organizations in your community. And you can do it around different themes. So, housing, transportation. Are the bus drivers patient for somebody to get on a bus who's maybe a little confused to get the ticket out? Can the bus driver be taught to be a bit more patient? The bus driver has to be at the next stop, right? These are not easy questions, but they're necessary questions if we're going to have these kinds of communities. Networks, all kinds of networks. Who needs to be networked with whom? And it's just one example here. Especially police departments. Police departments are crucial in the safety issues. And the police need to be trained in dealing with persons who have dementia. And police departments networking with social service, networking with medicine, networking, etc. You can think about all those. Help them be practical, inclusive, and discreet. And then resources. Giving people resources to stay active, supporting people whose dementia has progressed to stay engaged with their communities. Don't go away. Is there something about our meetings that's disturbing to you? Is there something we might change that actually might benefit everybody? Maybe everybody is confused by those announcements we run through in 30 seconds at the beginning of the meeting. Maybe if we slow it down, everybody would benefit. Things like that. Walking groups with buddies. This is a big one in England. They've developed this whole program called Dementia Friends. And Dementia Friends are volunteers, mostly young baby boomers, who volunteer to have a regular walk with somebody. Okay, and they've been trained, and other kinds of volunteer activities. You see memory cafes there. We're going to describe memory cafes in a minute. So that is kind of putting it all together in a sort of theoretical sense about what a dementia-friendly community looks like. And now I'm going to hand it over to John and say, where are we going to find these things?